And we're seeing this firsthand with Web2 customers. So, a marketing agency that has nothing to do with crypto. They have independent contractor, for example, based in Argentina. These people are asking them, hey, can you pay me in USDC? So these marketing agencies, they come to us and say, hey, we don't know how to do that. We don't want to start, manually sending out and having to figure out, the wallet address and et cetera, and the conversion. Can you help us out? And that's where we come in.
Welcome back to The Signal, everyone. I just got back from Singapore literally 5 hours ago and hopped directly in front of the camera to pretty much record this episode. And I think pretty relevant to what we're about to speak about today is that one key takeaway for myself from pretty much all of these conferences is that crypto really, really is such a global ecosystem with every team consisting of people just from all around the world. Like it's incredible. Like even though you hear about it, every team is remote. It's just when you see it in person in these conferences, you gather those people together who haven't seen each other after working together for like several years. It's just crazy. But with this setup, one inevitable headache that you have on the admin side of running these businesses is definitely managing payroll. Because a funny discussion that I bumped into over the past week a few times is that probably heard like 20 different currencies that people are being paid in both fiat and crypto. And also just the different legal setups, like being an employee or a contractor or whatever it might be. So we're going to be speaking about that a little bit, that admin headache and how it could be solved. So we're super excited to have Hugo Finkelstein, the co-founder of Rise, Crypto Payroll and Web3 Workforce Solution, join us today to speak about this topic and how to really work with globally distributed teams in this space. So Hugo, welcome to the pod.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Excited to get into it.
Yeah, of course. I think the best place to start here to set the stage would probably be if you could briefly walk us through your background, where your interest in crypto really came from, and why payroll was the most attractive area to really launch a business in this space from your perspective.
Yeah. So a little bit on myself. I'm French American. I moved to the US from Paris about 15 years ago. I went to college in Boston where I started my first company. While I was in college, actually, the first time I heard about Bitcoin and crypto was my roommate that brought it up to me. He brought up Ethereum to me and he was like, hey, you heard of that? You should look into it. It was, I think 2015, 2016. So that was my first, the first time I heard about it and I started digging into it. So I was working on my startup, nothing to do with payments, nothing to do with crypto. We would help students buy and sell products on campus. But through that endeavor, I met an angel investor who later on, as I graduated and moved on from this first business, was starting his cryptocurrency exchange. So back in 2017, at the top of the ICO, bull market back then, if you remember, feels like an eternity, but ago, I essentially met him and got, fascinated by what he was building and decided to join his team in, September or October of 2017, help him on all of his marketing initiatives. Essentially back then, the team was like 5 people. I was the first marketing hire. And, as this industry is kind of like used to be the Wild West back in the day, I went from being a marketing intern to the CMO of the exchange in a span of 4 months, which is quite absurd. But essentially joined the team and helped him with all of the community building efforts that came ahead of their ICO. So we essentially, over the span of 4 months, developed a full-on framework to produce, translate, and distribute content all around the world using very local partners, influencers, journalists, forums, etc., to build the international community that would support the project in the ICO. I remember it was, back then at that time, projects were starting to use Discord as a means to host their community. So it was really, really early on. And I got fascinated by it. I got fascinated by the fact that you could gather people from all around the world with, the most amount of variety in backgrounds and gather them behind projects. So we built that. We built a community of around 40,000 people. 10,000 of them participated in the ICO. And as a result, we got a lot of demand from other projects to help them with the same marketing initiatives. So that's when we decided to, as part of the exchange ecosystem, launch like a launch agency or marketing agency that I ran for about a year and a half. And through that process, helped many different projects, built different communities. And through that endeavor, works a lot on platforms such as Fiverr or Upwork or these, gig economy marketplaces to help me tap into this flexible, independent workforce as I needed to, satisfy my clients' needs without having to hire full time. So, essentially within the span of like 6, 8 months, I got fascinated by this, crypto emerging industry and communities, as well as this, independent, on-demand, flexible, independent workforce. So I did that for a year and a half. Eventually, the ICO market crashed, and our business model was not sustainable enough to keep going as a marketing agency. I knew I wanted to stay in the space, and I knew I wanted to start meeting builders, engineers with these, smart contract and Solidity capabilities in order to build, projects. That's when I met my co-founder Andrew in April 2019. We actually met online on AngelList. And then over the span of a few months, we started chatting. We started with a weekly call, and then we started eventually chatting every day, trying to figure out, brainstorm around practical use cases for these new technologies, solving real world problems. No speculation. The intention was not to launch a token or anything. We just wanted to leverage these new technologies for, to improve people's lives. And eventually we landed on the idea that building a new kind of gig economy marketplace, like a new Fiverr or an Upwork built on chain with smart contracts, releasing funds as projects would evolve and milestones would be hit, was a good starting point. We did a lot of interviews with freelancers, and we really thought that, having this newer kind of marketplace would empower both the payers, the businesses, and the contractors, the payees. We essentially got started, raised a bit of capital, launched the marketplace in early 2021. And after a few months, I think we did about 50K in GMV. We realized we had a much better business if we were to package the infrastructure we had built for compliance and payouts and sell that to businesses that already knew their contractors, but just wanted to, work with them and pay them compliantly in all kinds of currencies. So we made the pivot, closed the pre-seed, and launched what we have today, which is a payroll and compliance infrastructure for any kind of business. That could be a DAO, that could be a startup, that could be a protocol, or even a more, traditional business that has nothing to do with crypto, but help them hire, onboard, and pay international contractors and soon full-time employees all around the world. That's how I got into it.
Love it. Love to hear the backstory, Hugo. Congrats on kind of the whole journey. I know there's probably a lot of ups and downs throughout that entire process as well. Ascari and I have been talking a lot about stablecoins on this show, so excited to get into a real application for stablecoins in this episode. And maybe to kind of start this and kick it off, if you could kind of talk a little bit about just like this new market you mentioned that you kind of were seeing a lot of demand for freelancers and sort of the nature of the crypto industry as like this global distributed workforce. What was kind of the gap in the market in terms of the existing incumbent payroll solutions out there and what is needed to service like the Web3 user base?
Yeah. I mean, I think we decided to make the pivot so we launched the marketplace connecting businesses and contractors. And we started talking more and more with businesses or customers and realized that, there was a need for them that wasn't being, satisfied by existing incumbents, in the sense that they wanted to have flexibility around payments. They were, just coming to us and say, hey, we already know our contractors that we want to work with. We want to make sure we can onboard them compliantly. And we want to make sure that they can be paid in the currencies that they want. And in most instances, some of them want to get paid in stables or in crypto versus fiat. We don't know. We don't have, the different currencies they're asking for. We're currently doing things manually. We're looking for a solution to automate that entire process and have the most amount of flexibility. So, for us, it was a no-brainer. It still is a no-brainer today that, existing payroll systems are evolving into what we're building, which is having a hybrid infrastructure. So, the current state of the market is the following. You have the old major incumbents such as ADP, Paychex, Paycom, that will help you, with compliance and payroll, but are definitely not touching crypto or stablecoins. Just because they don't have to today, they're big enough that they can be sustained with the current customer base that they have, and their machine is already launched basically. You then have a newer set of payroll, employer record, global payroll platforms such as Deal, Papaya Global, Remote, Oyster, etc. They are starting to tip their toes into the crypto world and stablecoin world because of demand from their existing customer base. And then you have companies like us, and I'd like to see us, and position us as the natural evolution of these companies with a full-on hybrid infrastructure. So that means we have the same capabilities as them in terms of compliance and fiat, local payouts in local currencies, but we also have this full-on on-chain infrastructure that unlocks an entirely new world of opportunities for both the customers, like the businesses paying their people, and the individuals getting paid. And I'm happy to get into that. So yeah, that's, the current state that we're seeing. And we've seen many indicators that are showing us that the traditional world, like the Web2 world, is jumping and running towards this hybrid payment system that we're building.
Fantastic. And what are some of the, I guess, challenges here where, if you're an employer and you're trying to pay people, maybe they're contractors, maybe they're employees, and they're located in different jurisdictions, there's, I'm sure, like some tax issues that come into play here. There's KYC, AML, other compliance. Would love for you to speak a little bit about just some of those challenges for employers today, and like how you can solve some of those through this hybrid solution.
Yeah, I mean, basically, there's really two pillars. The first one is compliance. There's HR, and then, like AML, KYC compliance, as well as payments. So when it comes to compliance, you want to hire someone, whether that's a contractor or a full-time employee, that will come with different sets of requirements and checks that you have to handle. But nonetheless, in both instances, you have to make sure that you can verify the identity, the AML. You can verify that if someone registers as a business, you'll want to verify that this business is in fact a business, run by this person. So that's the first set of challenges. When you want to do that in, dozens, if not hundreds of countries, how do you do that? So we have this, pillar put in our system. So, when an employer comes in, they will invite all of their team members. They will go through automated, KYC checks and different checks when they onboard on the system. The second piece is, once you verify the identity of that person and the legitimacy of that business or person, you'll want to have locally compliant agreements. So, professional service agreements in different jurisdictions, because each jurisdiction will come with different sets of rules from an HR standpoint. So then that's the second layer that we add in. And today we're doing independent contractors all around the world in more than 150 countries, but we have new features and products that we're going to launch in a bit for full-time employees that I'm happy to dive into. And then the last piece is, we could say one of the most important is if that, contractor or employee that's based, say, at the opposite of the world, that wants to get paid in stables or in their local currencies. As a business owner, you only have, say, like dollars in your treasury. How are you going to convert, send, and make sure that it's cost efficient for you and time efficient for the payee, the funds to them? So, automating the conversion, the send out, the payouts, etc., in different jurisdiction, in different types of currencies, fiat or digital or cryptocurrencies. So that's the third layer that we add on. Essentially, we help those businesses pay anyone, anywhere in the world, in whatever currencies they want. The managers don't have to worry about, the currencies that their people want, crypto, stables, or fiat. And we automate that entire process for them with very, attractive rates, basically.
Fantastic. And I'd love to, if we could kind of pivot this a little bit, just to talk a bit about stable coins. Stable coins are operating on these sort of like global accounting ledgers. They're unique from the perspective of kind of the accounting of how everything works. So I'm curious, like, where do you see this going, I guess, in the future with potentially streaming payments? Are you guys working on the ability to, you mentioned that you're doing some stuff with full-time employees now. is there the ability to sort of make payments speed up a little bit, where typically payroll is like a weekly thing or bi-monthly? Are we able to do it a little bit faster on with stablecoins? Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's why also, we took the entire approach of building this company, and we wanted to own the entire payment, infrastructure, and, the on-chain infrastructure, because that makes us, we can build what we want and what the customer wants. So when you come in on the system, you have to date, I believe, like around 10 different pay schedules that you can set up. And that could be in fiat, or that can be in stables. And you can, literally like instant payments, fixed payments, milestone based, recurring payments on multiple types of frequencies. You can really, build whatever you want to build. So one thing that we're building for full-time employees, typically in the US, it's every 2 weeks. It's a bi-weekly process. Like we can build ways, and we're actively working on them, where, essentially employees can see their balance, accrue with time as they pay and cash out whenever they want. The employer doesn't have to worry about it. It's those kinds of things that we're building that I think will revolutionize the payroll ecosystem.
Yeah, that I've always thought that could be a sort of a new driver for demand for stablecoins. Right. If people can get paid faster, the employees are going to start to demand that, and then that kind of forces the employer to kind of opt into some of these newer solutions.
Definitely. I've been a digital nomad myself for the past 4 or 5 years. I've been invoicing in a lot of different currencies and fiat over the years. And just this year, I've also been invoicing like stable coins, making a lot of transfers from exchanges to fiat bank accounts to pay for daily living. And I just had my second bank this year rug me. So first, it's the largest bank of the Nordics, who just closed all my accounts because of money coming in from different countries and different exchanges. Now I had Revolut just pull them under my feet and just block my accounts again. So there's still like a lot of friction around kind of getting that thing to work from the individual contractor's perspective when you're being paid in different currencies. So I think a question building on that maybe is that, what are the primary use cases that you are seeing today where there's the most demand for this service?
I mean, I think we really see two. And I mean, as a business, we're going to target businesses that have international team members, that want to get paid in all these multiple currencies. And as you said, they don't want to have to deal with, their banks, rugging them basically. So that's where we come in. That's the first, use case: international, independent contractors and soon full-time employee payments. The other use case that we're actively working on, and we're doing all of the compliance and regulatory efforts to get in that position, and it's starting to pay off, is those individuals, they reach out to us, and to date we have about 100,000 of them signed up on the system. They'll come to us and say, hey, it's amazing that I can get paid by my customers that are onboarded with you, but what if I want to get paid by other customers that don't want necessarily to onboard with you guys? Can I just send an invoice, receive stables, and then automatically received, local currencies in my bank account? So this kind of, off ramp and, on ramp as well, because they'll be able to do both, is the second use case that we're actively working on and super excited about. Like, we have tremendous demand on it. And I think that it's, in the vision of building the most advanced financial ecosystem for both payers and payees, that would be, is a very strong second product. So essentially, you'll be able to work with us if you want to, avoid all of these headaches.
Honestly, I need to because I've been rugged by so many banks. I need to remove a lot of friction in the process, because also, if you're being paid in stablecoins today, just like me as an end user, if I want to actually use those in real life in some way, there's just too many transactions and too many places where I need to be paying fees to kind of get that money into my hands in a way. So lots of streamlining to do there.
And another product that we're going to launch next year, we're still finalizing the timeline, is a card. A simple card where instead of even having to have the off-ramp done, you could start spending your funds, with any Visa accepting merchant directly from your account. So, essentially our goal is to remove all of these friction points that individuals are currently seeing.
I'm curious, Hugo, are you doing anything with yield-bearing stablecoins just yet? These are just starting to come around.
Yeah, so nothing yet, but definitely a topic that we're exploring. We're having discussions with many, players in the space. They're actually actively reaching out to us. I definitely think that it would make sense, in our ecosystem to have these kind of tokens and these kinds of, I would say like pools available to payees and even payers. So yeah, definitely something that we're going to activate. And another example of what are in our, industry, what the other players, the, Web2, more traditional players won't get into.
Yeah. That could get really interesting, because then all of a sudden you're sort of blending checking and savings accounts almost in the future here. So maybe to pivot this a little bit, just going a little bit like more high level here, something I've been thinking a little bit about is just what does this potentially mean for emerging markets and how things typically work, where you have some like really talented people, maybe they're based abroad outside the United States, and they tend to be attracted to move to the United States to work here. And this is where the jobs are. And what tends to happen is then that person stays in America, they pay their taxes in America, and sort of the rich get richer. With what you're sort of putting out into the market is allowing for the talent to sort of stay local, but still benefit off of the stability of the US dollar, and then having the global payment network. So I'm curious how you think about this. Is this potentially going to sort of, over a really long period of time, potentially lift up some of these emerging markets where it's kind of a win-win, where you get to sort of outsource the stability of the dollar, but then keep some of the economic benefits locally? I'm curious how you think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, these emerging markets have already been kind of lifted up with COVID and remote work and global payroll, remove stablecoins or crypto, just the fact that people, democratizing the, access to work. Basically, you can work from anywhere in the world, wherever you are, get access to the best companies. And I think companies in the US especially realize that they could get access to talent that would be sitting across the world and hire and pay them. So that's the first thing. And then, stablecoins, like the easiest and cheapest and most efficient ways for these local workers to get access to USD today is via stablecoins. Yeah. So making it easy for their customers or their employers to pay them in those currencies is what we're doing, and what I think will unleash even more economic power to these, markets that are emerging or where the local currencies are very, unstable, basically. Yeah. And we're seeing this firsthand with Web2 customers. So, a marketing agency that has nothing to do with crypto. They have independent contractor, for example, based in Argentina. These people are asking them, hey, can you pay me in USDC? So these marketing agencies, they come to us and say, hey, we don't know how to do that. We don't want to start, manually sending out and having to figure out, the wallet address and et cetera, and the conversion. Can you help us out? And that's where we come in. We would, essentially help them convert and automate the send out of USDC to these people. And as a result, these companies are able to attract and retain talent that are in these, in these markets. So, yeah.
Love to hear it. I can see a use case for the DeFi report coming here as it grows as well. Maybe, Oscar, you want to pivot to some of the numbers? I don't know how much you can share, Hugo, but we'd love to kind of get into just like kind of what you're seeing.
We do love data here. Stablecoin adoption is killer use case going through the roof. But in terms of like how it's being used for payrolls, that is like more granular level data that of course would be super interesting to hear about. So are you able to share any numbers in terms of what the total payroll funding is using stablecoins right now?
And it's quite interesting. I'll tell you these numbers and you can see the dynamics, and it's still quite interesting to see like fiat still has a very strong presence. Like in our hybrid ecosystem, fiat still has a strong presence, whether it's from the funding, like customers funding our accounts, or even contractors asking. So there's definitely still a lot of work to do to get into a fully digital and stablecoin world in HR and payroll. But I mean, this month, actually, last week, we crossed two major thresholds. Total, volume, we crossed 300 million since inception. And total unique payees onboarded, we crossed 100,000. So these are the, the big numbers that we're looking at. I mean, in terms of stats around stablecoins, in terms of payouts, USDT is more popular than USDC. The majority of our contractors are international, and you can definitely see that USDT in different regions of the world is still, the default choice when it comes to stables. So 60% of our stablecoin activity is done in USDT. The rest is USDC, and there's like small percentage points on we also have on our system a Uniswap ramp where people can decide to, after they get paid, they can swap their USDC for different currencies on Arbitrum. That's very minimal on our system, so it's majority USDT, USDC. In total, fiat is still in majority when it comes to funding. It's like a 55-45 split between fiat and stables. And same on the payout front. It's like a little less on the fiat front, but it's like 53-47 around there. And then, that's pretty much the stats we could share. Yeah.
Did you see a geographic difference in terms of which markets prefer payouts and stablecoins versus fiat?
I mean, definitely, jurisdictions and countries where inflation is strong and instability is strong. So markets such as Argentina, Poland, Turkey, are quite, demanding on the stablecoin front. And then, but still, like a lot of payees, even if they're in, developed markets and where their currencies are strong, they still want to have part of their paychecks in stablecoins to gain access to, the DeFi ecosystem.
You mentioned that USDT is like 60% of the usage today. Do you have any breakdown? Are you seeing, is there a geographic breakdown on that? I'm assuming that's happening more in the emerging markets, but can you see a clear delineation there where there's a preference for USDC from your more, Western based?
No, absolutely. I think what we're seeing, which is quite interesting, like for example, in America, USDC is way stronger than USDT. But then when you get to markets such as, in, Southeast Asia, people tend to be more prone to want to get paid in USDT. It might be related to the fact that people want to stay away from America and they associate USDC to America, basically. But we clearly see, some interesting dynamics.
How does that shake out, I guess, in terms of your integrations with different networks? I believe you guys are mostly Ethereum centric, but have you had to integrate like the Tron network as well? Because a lot of the USDT is happening on Tron.
We don't have it yet, but we're definitely getting a lot of demand for it. Payout on Tron. Right now, we're on EVM compatible chains. So we do mainnet, Optimism, Avalanche, Polygon, and Arbitrum. Our system is built on Arbitrum. The two biggest chains in terms of activity today are mainnet and Arbitrum.
Fantastic. Maybe we can jump in a little bit to the user experience. Let's say, the DeFi report's growing and I'm working with contractors globally. Maybe if we could just kind of walk through the process for me onboarding as an employer, and then, as for the contractor as well, and kind of what that looks like. And then one other thing I just wanted to hone in on here, as you talk a little bit about Rise, when we initially met down at Consensus earlier this year, talking with some of the teammates, I think they mentioned you guys were already profitable, which I thought I wanted to double click a little bit on that because that's interesting I believe you guys are like a, venture funded startup. So to get to profitability that early, you mentioned, I think you're going to be finishing a round as well soon, but would love if you could talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah. So, I'll start with the onboarding. Essentially, the first key component is the actual onboarding on the platform. We've put together a full-on, we'd like internally to say that it's an enterprise grade, compliance program. We have an amazing chief compliance officer that's set up all of our policies, procedures, programs around onboarding, transaction monitoring, reporting, etc. But the first step as a business, the business will sign up first. You will create a business account. So we're going to verify your identity. We're going to verify the ownership of the company, the formation documents, et cetera, ask questions about what kind of business you have, your, revenue source, fund source, et cetera. Once you pass onboarding, and all of that is automated to a certain extent, but we do have, different specialists that are on the onboarding front. But once you're onboarded, you will invite your team. So there's multiple ways to invite your team members. You can send batch invites, etc. Once you put their emails, we will send out invites. The individuals will sign up and go through onboarding. So they can sign up. There's 3 ways they can sign up. They can sign up as individuals. They can sign up as businesses. And they also can sign up anonymously. So it's a feature that we built only for, protocols and DAOs that have anonymous contributors. They would still pass KYC, we'd verify their identity, email, address, documents, checks, but the DAO would not be able to see their full-on identity, which is a feature that we've been asked for by some of our larger DAOs customers. Anyways, so they go through onboarding, same, the process is automated. And once their check is complete, they will create what we call a RISE ID. And I forgot to mention, but as a business, you will also create a business RISE ID. The RISE ID is a unique smart contract that each user, payer or payee will mint that will essentially, they will own it via one of their wallets. And if they don't have wallets or non-crypto friendly users, we will create, wallets for them encrypted on their browsers. That RISE ID will help users authenticate themselves with our infrastructure, and they will be able to speak with our smart contracts. So for example, if you want to approve a payment or initiate a withdrawal or set up an automated payout, whenever you're interacting with our smart contracts, you will have to sign a transaction with one of the wallets associated with that RISE ID. So you create that RISE ID, and it has many different, opportunities and features that we can discuss. But you create that RISE ID. The next step will be to sign the professional service agreements that we're going to generate for you between you and your contractors. Once that is signed, you will create payment schedules with your people. So you'll say, hey, I want to pay Michael on a daily, weekly, bi-weekly, milestone-based, hourly, you name it, basis. That will create a pay schedule and pay intents. And then the next step for you is to fund your account. So you can fund in fiat, you can fund in stables. Once it's funded, the contractors can get paid, and on their end, as they get paid, they decide to cash out wherever they want, on their bank account, on their exchange account, in crypto or fiat or stables, or on any other wallet. It's a lot, but it's quite easy once you see it and once you start using it, and everything can be automated basically. And then to your second question, yes, we became profitable in February on a monthly cash flow basis. And yeah, so it's allowed us to do a lot of different things and accelerate, and feeling, extremely comfortable in accelerating. So, very proud of where we are today, basically, with the resources that we've had and the rounds we've done before. So yeah.
There you go. They do exist in crypto. Profitable companies don't have a token that are just providing, real services in the market. That's awesome to hear. Yeah, maybe Oscar, you want to pivot over to just kind of where we're heading here for the future?
Great place to be in for sure. Already at this kind of early stage of your operations. And if we think a bit more into the future and you start scaling things out, I'd be interested in hearing what the current biggest bottleneck for growth is, or in other words, what does the path for more widespread adoption need to look like?
Yeah, I think it's something that a lot of our customers have been asking us, and we're finally going to be launching later January 2025, is a full-on payroll product. So right now we just help businesses with independent contractors, like 1099s. But a lot of people ask us to help them, with actually employing someone and providing healthcare benefits, pay stubs, and doing all of that for them. So, an EOR, employer of record, as well as a payroll service is something that we're going to launch in the US and in Canada starting in January, and then deploy that to multiple countries throughout 2025. I think that it will unlock significant growth for us, and it will offer a more, complete ecosystem to businesses. So the idea we have is that no matter the stage that a company or a protocol or DAO is at, we want to help them, whether it's for independent contractors around the world or locally, or full-time employees around the world or locally. We're also, we have other products and services we want to launch, but the most imminent one is the employer of record and payroll system.
I'm curious how you think of the kind of addressable market here. It seems like you guys are operating primarily, servicing Web3 startups, DAOs today. Is your thesis that all of payroll is going to go on to like public blockchains in the future, and like these larger incumbents eventually going to have to pivot to offering, solutions on blockchains using stablecoins. I'm curious,
Yeah.
it seems like the market's big enough for you guys right now, but do you believe like Web2
Yeah.
companies are eventually going to be on these rails
Oh
as
yeah.
well?
Absolutely. And we're seeing, as I was saying earlier, like there's so many different indicators, like practical indicators that we're seeing, whether it's within our customer base or, partners or even large Web2 competitors reaching out to us. Like we know for a fact that the industry, this payroll, global payroll industry is running towards the, hybrid infrastructure type that we're building, whether it is by, these large incumbents. I think it will be a bottoms up approach in the sense that they'll see more and more customers and employees or contractors demanding for this kind of product, and that will push them. And that's what we're seeing actually with competitors reaching out to us. I wouldn't think that they'd want to move, right off the bat, because as I said, I think they're very comfortable where they are, and a lot of them are focusing on their upcoming IPOs or just, battling for global payroll. But as they see more, demand coming in, they'll want to either, build it out themselves, integrate, partner, or acquire, basically. So yeah, definitely think that, the market is shifting toward that. We see it with competitors. We see it with partners like large accounting companies in the US are coming to us and say, hey, this crypto payroll, hybrid payroll solution, that's something that's becoming more and more topical within our customer base. How can we work together? And then, yeah, just Web2 customers being more and more interested in that. So yeah, I think the future is bright. We just have to execute.
Awesome. Ascari, anything else on your end before we wrap this up, or anything else, Hugo, you want to address?
Now, the only comment that I was going to say earlier on is that it's interesting that there's very clear product market fit, it seems, in the sense that there's so much demand that people just want more from you, and you need to start scaling the product suite to be more full stack payroll, HR, and see where it develops from there.
Yeah.
So it's just a great position to be in, and excited to see how it develops.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to add is, I think you have a lot of companies in the space that are doing, APAR, invoice or billing. Not a lot of them are tackling payroll. I mean, just to, you could count them on one hand, basically. But this approach, it definitely takes more work from a compliance standpoint, an infrastructure standpoint. But once you're there, and we're getting there as we speak, it's much easier to then offer adjacent services that are more easier to launch, like a bill pay or invoice pay or stuff like that. So I think that we've taken a more like a longer and there's definitely more challenges from an operational standpoint kind of approach, but in the long run, it's setting us up for success and, new services to be launched that our customers are asking for us. So yeah, I think anything to add is, if you have any international workers, even domestic, and you're interested in the topic, like our doors are wide open. We're available everywhere, riseworks.io or rise_pay on X/Twitter. And yeah, ready to educate, onboard, and speak to potential partners and customers.
Yeah, I've noticed you guys have a lot of great educational content going up on the website as well. I was doing some research for this episode on there, so I recommend people that are interested in Web3 payroll to check out some of the content that you guys are pushing out as well. And yeah, if anyone wants to learn more about you or Rise, I guess website, or you're on Twitter, I believe, as well.
Website, riseworks.io, Twitter, LinkedIn, everywhere, basically, we're available. So, and again, like I think part of our job is to educate, not educate like crypto friendly users, but educate people that are starting to become more and more interested, and are very close to becoming crypto users.
Yeah, this has been a great episode, Hugo. I really appreciate you coming on. Ascari and I are
Likewise.
rooting for you guys. Love to see what you guys are building, and we'll have to check in maybe 6 months or 12 months or so and see how things are going.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.